up, fellow kaiju and non-kaiju fans? Godzilla Karo here for another episode of the Godzillathon podcast. The guest of this episode is Akno Goji. And we will be taking a look at the film where Godzilla and Mothra first meet in Mothra vs. Godzilla, which was released on April 29th, 1964, and came out to the US on September 7th of that same year under the new title, Godzilla vs. The Thing.
It looks innocent as a gigantic ape, but its unseen powers are so great that its worshippers beg the Thing's indulgence in self-abasing ceremonies.
For the origins, originally, it was a supposed sequel entitled Continuation, King Kong vs. Godzilla, and it was decided that Mothra would be the monster that Godzilla would fight next. However, they did use some elements from the cancelled sequel. Now for the cast and crew, it was produced by Toho as well as Tomoyuki Tanaka, directed by Ishiro Honda, with Koji Kajita as assistant director. It was written by Shinichi Sakuzawa, and music by Akira Ifukube. The director of cinematography was Hajime Koizumi, and special effects was done by, of course, Eiji Tsuburaya. Akira Takarada comes back as Ichiro Sakurai, Yoriko Hoshi as Junko Yoka Nakanashi, Hiroshi Koizumi as Professor Mura, Yoshifumi Tajima as Kumayama, Kenji Sahara as Banzo Terahata, and finally we have a reoccurring duo from the original Mothra movie that are reprising their role. The Peanuts, Emi and Yumi Ito, come back as Ashobi Jins, and of course Haruna Kojima as Godzilla. Now, my history of the film. This is one of the short films I had on VHS as a kid. Funnily enough, it's one of the only ones that I still had the case for it while I was growing up, as I seem to have a habit of losing VHS cases back then, apparently. Now, I do believe that this was either my first or second Mothra film, too, I think.
History with this film. This is my very first Godzilla film. If it wasn't for this film, I wouldn't seen a Godzilla movie. Yeah, I remember I think I saw this on the Classic Media, the 2002 DVD set. You could probably just pull an image up. That was my first introduction to this film. I saw it on a Classic Media. I vividly remember, I was given a choice to choose two films. One was Godzilla King of the Monsters, and the other was Mothra vs. Godzilla. I chose Mothra vs. Godzilla because for me said, I don't want to watch black and white. I want to watch color. I love this film to death. I think I watched this the most out of the show, to be honest. So yeah, this is my favorite. It's easily my favorite film in the show ever. So yeah,
Yeah, Kid. I don't know why, but Kid Us seems to just hate black and white movies. For some reason, we were spoiled
Yeah.
growing up in the world of colored television slash movies, apparently. Anyways, now to our thoughts. For me, with the story, it's pretty much sort of a rehash of what we've seen before in her debut film. Just with Godzilla added to the mix, and there's an adult Mothra from the get-go, and the egg taking place of the show begins, of being taken when it's not supposed to be. I will say that the final act kind of dragged on. The pace of it could have been tightened up a little bit, as well as some certain scenes being shortened.
what I think of the story, I enjoyed the story. It's about I really love how the characters handled the story with the film. I enjoyed it. I think the first act was pretty good. Second act also good. Third act, I would admit, we did drag on a little bit, but it was all right. It's it's an all right third act, I guess. I enjoyed it for what it was. Yeah, it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. So yeah.
For the characters, they were fine. They were all written well, though none of them really stood out to me other than Keiji Sahara. Just in terms of his roles before this role, with him being, one of the good guys. So good switching actors up for character type roles. Now, there's one best character of the whole movie. Skeleturtle! Sorry, I had to use that.
Oh yeah, I forgot Skeleton was in this movie.
Yes, well acted. But no. Anyways, now, Godzilla was the usual early shower antagonist Godzilla. Nothing really to write home about. Yet until the next movie. Mothra is her good self, as well as her larvae. Not much to say. It's Mothra.
What I think of the characters, I enjoy every single one of the characters. They look like they're playing all into the roles, especially the villain characters and female photographer. Look at playing all into the roles. I think her name is
The character or the
character.
Junko Yoka Nakanashi.
Jungle.
Yes.
Yeah, I think her character is pretty good, and I just enjoy her because she seems like a fun character, and like she's giving it all into a role. Same with Jiro, Kayama. Pretty much every character in this movie is giving all into the role, except in the supporting cast because it looks like they're just there on set. It looks like they were just hired on set because they were just there. Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Played by Haro Nakajima. May he rest in peace. But Godzilla is pretty cool. I enjoy him. He's a pretty mean guy, and it looks like every time he's on set, it looks like he's drunk. I don't know why. Like he just came out of a bar or something. Like I'm not kidding. It was like the was I don't know why. It was like he made him look drunk. Like every time he came on set, Godzilla was just drunk for some reason. I enjoyed that. This kind of seems out of character for him, considering his villain role in the last movie. Yeah, it's kind of a funny personality that Hollywood gave him, a drunken Godzilla. Oh, and then Mothra, and I enjoy Mothra, but they did with Mothra because with Mothra, they have to give Mothra a reason to. They start off Mothra with having her be an anti-hero, which is weird. I never thought of Mothra as an anti-hero, so because now they have to give her because the Shobijin need a reason for Mothra to come stop Godzilla, which is unique and is done only once and never again.
I mean, to be fair, she was dying. and she was probably still like a bit sour, I guess, that Kumayama and Terahata would not give her aid back. Like, fine. Screw all y'all, just die in peace over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't blame her. I don't blame her.
Also, for some strange reason, Mothra shrank for some reason because in the previous movie she was like 80 meters, and now she's 65 meters. So
Wait, is
I'm
she?
guessing that. Yeah. So apparently she shrunk between movies. I'm guessing that's because she was dying, and moths tend to shrink when they die. I guess I don't know.
So the acting was decent. Everyone did their job well. I will say that I think Yoshifumi and Kenji, out of all the characters, I got the feeling that they really enjoyed playing those characters. I could be wrong. I could just look at an interview and they say that these were the most hated roles they did. But I just got that feeling that they did enjoy acting in these two roles.
For the characters, I think all the characters gave it to all, especially the villain characters and the female character. Like I said, the villain characters look like they're having fun being evil. Being so evil. Especially how they handle with them just wanting to use the egg as an amusement park, I think. I think that's what they wanted to use the egg for, as an amusement park, which is pretty well done. Like, and they even rip off each other later on. Yeah, because Jiro doesn't give Koyama his money, so they pretty much run on greed, and then they get killed by Godzilla. In the end, yay. Well, at least Jiro does. I think Koyama gets shot. Oh yeah, this movie has blood and people dying
On screen, too.
screen.
If I remember correctly, this film was one of the only films that Ishiro did showcase human-on-human violence, surprisingly.
Yeah, rated G. It's a family picture. Also, especially, let's talk about the character roles. I like how the story revolves around Mothra saying that they want to give that they need to give back the egg, or Mothra will come destroy Japan or something, or something bad will happen. Like the Mothra caterpillars will come destroy Japan or something, which never happens. But it's still nice to think that they could have done that if Mothra didn't align with the humans.
Yeah, I think the Peanuts,
Peanuts. They called the Shobijin.
No, I'm not. We talked about acting, not the characters, remember?
Oh. Yeah.
But yeah, the Peanuts, actually, the Peanuts, does stand out. I should have, I just now thought about it, as the Shobijins. And I hoped that they did like the Shobijin role. I mean, they had to be the Shobijin for 61 this film like 3 times. I think Ghidorah the Three-Eyed Monster was the final appearance of the Peanuts at the Shobijins. I would have to make sure.
Are you sure? Didn't they pay him in Sea Monster?
No, those two were a completely different set of twins, I believe. I'll have to do, when I'm doing some look-ups of things for Ghidorah the Three-Eyed Monster, I'll see. I mean, I have the book, so I can just take one of them off the shelf and just check. And then cross-reference it to online sources. But anyways, Enough rambling.
Let's move on to special effects.
Okay. So, up close as per usual, solid effects from the Tsuburaya crew. And they were better than the previous century. And this film, I believe, was the first use of the optical printer. After, I believe, Tsuburaya, begged Toho to get, I think, one of the only two in the world at that time, I think. I forgot how many was around during that time. I think it was one of two. But anyways, this thing helped the film. I think they primarily used it in the scene where Godzilla's far away and the humans run in the foreground, and then when Godzilla peeked over the mountain and all that. I will say that there is some fumbles here and there, but was not glaring as the last film. I don't know, the blue screen of the natives trying to stop the giant octopus.
I enjoy the special effects. The special effects were really good, especially in the kaiju fights. Most of the kaiju fights, even though I didn't enjoy Mothra Larvae vs. Godzilla as much as I did Godzilla vs. Mothra Mango, because the Godzilla vs. Mothra Mango fight, it was pretty well handled, and it looks like they're actually fighting, and it feels like it's actually there. And it feels like it's an actual butterfly. And you can tell, and you can barely see the strings on the puppet, which they still handle well. And I think this is the same puppet from Mothra, I believe. I'm not sure. It could be modified or something. I don't know. But I enjoyed the Mothra's Godzilla fight. And the special effects during the action scenes were pretty well handled. They're pretty well done, especially during the army scenes, because it shows that Godzilla is a force of nature not to be messed with. And the special effects show it. There's even a scene where Godzilla catches his head on fire, which wasn't done on purpose. I think they just did that by accident.
Oh, yeah.
He was all right.
Yeah, I think if it's just the head, he'd be fine. I'm not sure. I forget how far down the flames went, but I'm pretty sure that they made sure to put them out instantly.
Yeah, you do that. I'm not sure about that because it kind of looks like the flames went out by themselves, during that scene. So yeah. People were harmed during the filming of this film. Yay. Also, I'm not sure how they did the freaking Maser, whatever the antenna Maser thing, whatever it was called. That's fat. I'm assuming they use a blue screen or something. I enjoyed that scene a lot. I think I put that, and I'm watching that scene a lot. And the miniatures for the tanks. I think this is the first time they used those tanks, unless they used them in the last film. And I'm just now noticing that.
The scene where it cuts to Godzilla using his breath and then cuts to a tank mountain. That's I believe actually some stock footage from King Kong vs. Godzilla.
The more you know. So apparently,
Yes.
this was the first Godzilla film that used those footage, not Invasion of Astral Monsters. What the heck? I enjoyed a lot of the city destruction scenes and the army scenes. I enjoyed them more than the kaiju fights, actually. The army scenes, for some reason. Because they're actually pretty well done, handled. Actually, these have some of the best army scenes in any Godzilla film, to be honest. I don't know why. Mostly because with every army scene, every other Godzilla film, it's just them shooting the missiles at Godzilla and not coming up with a new plan to defeat Godzilla. With the army scenes, with the special effects is handled, it's pretty well handled, so yeah. And the kaiju fights are pretty well handled too.
Next up is the kaiju designs. Godzilla's design was refreshing, and it continues to be familiar. He looks threatening in the face, constantly looking like he's going to fight everyone and everything, which is very on brand. I do say that I do wish this design could have been the definitive design going forward in the Showa era, but I understand they couldn't do that. And his atomic breath is starting to get his iconic look that we all know and love. For the Mothra design, I thought it was fine. I liked the patterns and the colors of her wings. And for me, she does look like an old divine moth on her last legs. Hello, sadly nothing too special, but what can you do with twin Mothra larvae at the time?
I enjoyed the Godzilla design. I think this is probably one of my favorite Godzilla designs from Showa. Mancun 70. Okay, second favorite Godzilla design in the Showa, next to the 74 and 75 Godzilla. But I enjoyed this Godzilla a lot, mostly because of the dorsal fins and the way that they made the scenes look before this Godzilla. And plus, I just enjoyed the design. It kind of mostly because I think this is like one scene with Godzilla with him just looking at the egg. It's like, omelette. I think that's probably my favorite shot of Godzilla in the movie. Of him just looking down, ready to eat the egg. And then Mothra comes out of nowhere. And it's like, what? I love that scene saying, like, hey, I'm about to eat an omelet. It's kind of like Godzilla said, hey, I'm about to eat an omelet. What do you want? And then there's Mothra, which I enjoy the design, even though it is pretty much the same design from Mothra 1961. The only difference is that they changed the color pattern a little bit. I enjoy it. And then they got the Mothra larvae, which is not as good as the original Mothra larvae, but they're alright, I guess. And then we got Skeleturtle! Peak.
I love how Skeleturtle is just also getting some spotlight. Even if it's like being a background of some like promotional stuff. I think anyways. For the music, obviously Akira Ifukube did a stellar job as usual. And I loved his Sacred Springs, which is I believe the only Shobujin song he wrote.
Music, I enjoyed the soundtrack of this movie. I think it's probably one of my favorite soundtracks in the show era. To be honest, I really enjoyed the soundtrack. It had some foreboding and had some chilling songs. Especially the Shobijin song, because that song, the new one, is kind of foreboding, kind of scary sometimes for a Shobijin song. The one on the island, when they called, I forgot the name of the song, but it's a really chilling song.
I think that might be his Sacred Spring song that's playing when the characters go to island and then they meet up with them.
Yeah, that one is pretty chilling. It has some foreboding and it is pretty scary if you think about it. That scene always scared me as a child because of how scary the Shobijin sound when they're singing. You get the regular Shobijin song. Like, why do the Shobijin sound so scary when they're singing? For some reason. I don't know why. And then you got whatever the name of that song they have when they were waking up. Mothra Larvae. I forgot the name of that one. And then you got Godzilla's theme and Mothra's theme. And then you got the battle theme, which is pretty cool, which has some nice tracks in it and nice beats, and I listen to it all the time. I enjoy it.
Now, our overall thoughts. My overall thoughts on the film, I liked it and it was good. The fight between Godzilla and Mothra was surprisingly entertaining. The infant island natives were done well, much better than King Kong vs. Godzilla's natives. The entrance for the Big G is one of the best. Just watching the mud shift and move before a hiss of steam radiation was released, and just his tail coming up before his dorsal plates, and then the rest of his torso appearing from under the ground. It was just a well-done, a great scene. I will say that the film started my stupid favorite tradition, biting the tip of Godzilla's tail. I even had such a thing in my Godzilla with Surface story. Now, gonna be disagreeing with some fans out there. I didn't mind how Godzilla was defeated, and did like the ending. I thought it was fitting because it was Unity that defeated Godzilla, i.e. the twin larvae, working together to encase Godzilla in a cocoon. Of course, that might just be me looking too deeply into it. Speaking of the two larvae, seeing them again makes me wish that they were already larvae from the get-go, and we see them cocooning into adults. I would love to see the differences they would have, particularly in the wings. Maybe someday. Well, that's all I can say about this film. It's one of my favorites. And it could be my first introduction to Mothra when I was a kid. Of course, it could have been the 1992 film, but I'm not sure. It's one of those two.
This is my favorite Godzilla film, my first Godzilla film, one of my favorite Godzilla films from the show era. I enjoy it very much. It's definitely in the top 10 for me. I really love it. The special effects were handled well, character driven well, story well. Everything about this movie I love. This is like one of my most rewatched films in the show era. And I, like you said, the scene with Godzilla coming out from the ground is pretty cool scene. And the fights are pretty well handled. Like, I enjoy everything about this film. What is there not to love about Mothra vs. Godzilla? Nothing. There is nothing that is to hate about this film. Even if I saw this film like 30 times for this review. Yeah, that's not joke. This film. Thanks. But yeah, I love this film. It's pretty cool. I love it to death. And I always love it. It would be my favorite film from the show era. And Saturday Night's film will probably be the last show era film that'll probably be good. But we'll get to that when we get to that.
And that is it for this Godzillathon episode. Want to pick your stuff out now?
You can find me on Goji on Twitter or at Goji. You can find me on Goji Official on X. You can find me on Goji 2017 on Instagram. And I now have a Blue Sky, which I haven't posted yet, but I need to post on Goji social. You can find me on YouTube at Goji 2001. You can find me on Discord at Goji. You can pretty much find me anywhere at Goji.
And we'll see you guys in the next video, which the next video, he will also be doing it with me. And this next episode shall be our lovely three-headed dragon that terrorizes the silver screens. This is Godzilla Kairu.
Is that Goji the one and only?
Signing out.
Out.